Double Blessings. I'm Carol.
And I'm Carolyn.
And today's episode is part 2 of learning about all the 12 disciples. We're breaking it up into 3 episodes. In our part 1, we learned about Peter, James, John, and Andrew. If you haven't seen that, you should go back and look at that. And in this episode, we're going to learn about Philip, Bartholomew. Am I saying that good? And Matthew and Thomas. Let's just say, I'm not sure why anybody would use a name that's hard to pronounce, because all of that man's life, I bet you people were like, is that how you say it? Bartholomew? Like that's hard to say. The next one we're going to learn about is Philip. If you haven't seen the first episode, it's fine. You can stick around. We're learning from this pamphlet that we got at Kennedy Parables. Goes through all 12. And it talks about other names that Philip was given, and it says none. His personality and character says he was practical, he was helpful, and he was literal and confused. Now, I'm not sure why he was confused, so if anybody has anything to say about that, who was ever watching, you can comment and let us know, because we're all here to learn. And looking into our Who's Who Bible to learn more about him, this is something that we did in our last episode. It says, Philip the Apostle. Just be aware there's a few Philips in the Bible. This one's the Apostle. Jesus called Philip to be one of his 12 disciples. Philip also invited his friend Nathanael to follow Jesus. When 5,000 people flocked to Jesus, Philip decided that a half year's wages would not have bought food for everyone. According to tradition, Philip died for his faith in modern-day Turkey. In the encounters with Jesus, he was called the third disciple. Jesus tested him regarding the feeding of the multitude. He was present at the Last Supper.
The key lessons and stories that you can find Philip in is all the knowledge in the world does not compare to the truth found in Jesus. Tradition suggests that Philip lived and preached in Scythia, Ukraine today. And some stories suggest that Philip was crucified on a tall cross at Hierapolis of Phrygia, so Turkey today. Symbols for Philip sometimes include loaves of bread found in John chapter 6 verses 5 to 7 and a tall cross. Additionally, what's important for us to know about him is he had a seeking heart and brought others to Jesus. His questions to Jesus reminds us that it's okay to seek deeper understanding in our faith. So even though sometimes we might think, well, I shouldn't ask this question because God's going to look unfavorable upon me, we can ask those questions. We can bring those questions because that's exactly what Philip did. He was always searching for deeper meaning and questioning things. So learning about different disciples helps us to grow in our faith, but also we can understand different aspects of discipleship. We can see ourselves in Philip, seeking the bigger meaning, seeking the truth. Because even today, being a Christian and being baptized, there's still so many questions that I have. I still believe in Christ, but there's still some things that I just don't understand, and I might never find an answer to, and that's okay. Because in the mind that is infinite, there's some, what do they call that? What's the opposite of infinite?
Finite?
Yeah, in my finite mind.
I don't know. I don't think you should trust me, Carolyn.
No, I think you're right.
Let me look.
No, that makes sense. In our finite mind, we can't, sometimes we just have to just let go and let God and know that not everything needs an answer, but that's where faith comes in.
Aw, I was right.
I know you were.
I'm so proud of me sometimes.
Yeah.
All right.
Moving on.
We're going to just quickly look at a video too, because I'm more of a visual learner. I don't know about you guys, if you guys are. So I'm just going to share a video that we found on Philip, and hopefully it helps you.
Curiously, Philip was the apostle who brought Nathanael, Bartholomew, to Jesus, saying, "We have found the one Moses wrote about in the law." But the twist is, Philip performed miracles, like feeding thousands with loaves and fishes, showing his strong faith and power. Philip's missionary work took him to regions like Phrygia, where he preached and performed many signs and wonders, eventually being martyred for his unwavering devotion.
All right. Our second disciple is Bartholomew. So he was also known as Nathanael. He was a skeptical man. He was honest and he was faithful. So in our Who's Who, when the Gospels list Jesus's disciples, Bartholomew's name is always immediately after Philip's. Outside of these listings and the one in Acts 1:13, we do not see Bartholomew's name again in the New Testament. Since Philip is described as introducing a Nathanael to Jesus, many scholars believe Bartholomew and Nathanael were the same person. Interesting. Okay. Jesus told Nathanael that he was an honest Israelite and informed him that he saw him sitting under the fig tree. And if you watch The Chosen, you'll see that. That is such a good scene. I don't know if it's true to scripture, but he was a person that loved drawing. He wanted to be almost like an architect. He drew beautiful buildings, and he wanted these buildings to come to fruition, but nothing was happening for him. So he had this pad of paper of sketches in these beautiful little carry bags. He had them by the fig tree, and he started burning them, and he started talking to Jesus. And he got to the point where he got down to his last paper saying that this dream basically is over because he's tried so hard to make it happen. And it looked like Jesus didn't want it to happen. And that's when he met Jesus. That's where he said Nathaniel, or maybe he said Bartholomew. No, he said Nathaniel in the show. I could be totally butchering this, but that's okay. We're all here to learn. But in the show, he said, I saw you under the fig tree. You should see his face because he was like shocked that he knew his name. He was shocked that he saw him under the fig tree because in that place, it was completely desolate. There was no one there. I think that's why he believed so hard that he was real and he was God. Okay, Nathanael said that Jesus was the Son of God and King of Israel, witnessed the miraculous catch of fish, and ate breakfast with Jesus after his resurrection.
And the key lesson here is believers are called to test all things with scripture and remain true to its principles. And the story, so some suggest that Bartholomew ministered to Asia Minor and India, and the Armenian Church claims Bartholomew as their founder. Tradition suggests that Bartholomew was flayed alive in Armenia.
What does that?
I don't know.
Flayed alive. Carry on. I'm going to look this up.
A symbol for Bartholomew is sometimes a blade. Additional information: Jesus called him a man in whom there is no deceit. His story teaches us about sincerity, faith, and recognizing Jesus as the Son of God.
Okay. So I just looked this up. The story goes that after Jesus ascended into heaven, Bartholomew traveled east to India to preach the gospel and ended up in Greater Armenia. According to tradition, he was flayed and beheaded, therefore converting the king to Christianity. He is often depicted in art flayed and holding his skin. That's what it means. Ugh.
Meaning what? Just like, what is it? Skinned alive?
I think it means skinned. Well, it doesn't go into kind of as that. He was holding his skin, so I'm assuming that's what it means.
Gross. That's
Peel the skin off of a corpse or a carcass. One shoulder had been flayed to reveal the muscles. I didn't know that meaning.
that would be horrible, honestly.
Yeah. And last, we're going to share a quick little clip.
Bartholomew, also known as Nathanael, was one of Jesus' 12 apostles, known for his sincerity and integrity. When Philip brought Nathanael to Jesus, he saw him under a fig tree and said, "Here is a true Israelite, in whom there is no deceit." Amazed, Nathanael asked how Jesus knew him, and Jesus replied that he had seen him before Philip called him. This encounter led him to proclaim, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." From that moment on, Bartholomew faithfully followed Jesus, witnessing his miracles and learning from his teachings. He was also among the apostles who saw the resurrected Jesus, further strengthening his faith and commitment. Bartholomew's life reminds us of the power of genuine faith and the impact of seeing and believing in Jesus. Bartholomew, the apostle without deceit.
Okay. Third, Matthew. Matthew was also known as Levi, and Levi the son of Alphaeus. I'm going to look that up so I'm not ruining it.
Tax collector in Galilee.
Alphaeus. So our third disciple is Matthew. His other names were Levi, and Levi, the son of Alphaeus. His characteristics are penitent. Penitent? Do you know that meaning?
I think it means to give penance to.
Feeling or showing sorrow and regret for having done wrong. Penitent and hospitable. He happens to be one of my favorite characters on The Chosen, and he was played by Perez Patel. Hopefully I'm saying that right. And Matthew was a tax collector. And in our Who's Who Bible, I recommend getting one of these because you can learn a lot from it. It says Matthew, also called Levi, was a tax collector in Capernaum. He left his job to become a disciple of Jesus. He eventually wrote the Gospel of Matthew, where he refers to himself as Matthew the tax collector. Tax collectors had a reputation for being dishonest and greedy. Since the other Gospels do not state that he was a tax collector, Matthew may have wanted to highlight Jesus' gracious acceptance of sinners like himself. It says Matthew left his tax collector booth to follow Jesus. And in The Chosen, you see how well dressed he is and how well kept he is. He lives a good life. Not a lot of people like him, though. So I don't know how good that is. He has a beautiful home. He's got everything he needed at the time. He didn't have to worry about food, clothing, shelter, and all that. He left that all behind to go follow Jesus.
But he felt empty with all of that stuff. I think that's the important thing.
Yeah.
Was that there was this bottomless, this emptiness that he was longing for more. And I think we all can identify in that.
And Matthew invited Jesus over to dine with him and his corrupt friends. And people were shocked when he did this because they're like, how could you eat with a sinner? He was sent out on a mission to the Jews to preach the kingdom of heaven is at hand, heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, and cast out demons. And he was also present at the Last Supper.
Yeah. And the key lesson is Jesus Christ is for everyone, even sinners and outcasts. Some stories suggest that Matthew ministered to Persia, Macedonia, Syria, Parthia, Media, and Ethiopia, bringing the good news to kings. Some stories suggest that Matthew died a martyr. The symbol for Matthew is sometimes a bag of coins in reference to his occupation as a tax collector before he encountered Jesus. And further, being that former tax collector, Matthew shows that Jesus calls all sinners and can transform them for his purpose. His gospel provides a clear account of Jesus's life and teachings.
In The Chosen, Matthew was very meticulous. So they really trusted his words because he always had his little pad of paper with him everywhere. Now, I don't know how precise.
He's very analytical.
Yeah, how precise they got his character down in The Chosen. I know some Christians don't believe in watching it, but I think it was good. Okay, we're going to share a little bit about Matthew here.
In the ancient city of Capernaum lived Matthew, a tax collector known for his ruthless ways. One day, Jesus, a wise and compassionate teacher, called Matthew to follow him. Despite his guilt, Matthew accepted the invitation, leaving behind his life of greed. As Matthew journeyed with Jesus, he witnessed miracles and heard parables that touched his soul. Overwhelmed by remorse, he confessed his past sins to Jesus. In response, Jesus said, "I have come for sinners like you." Transformed by these words, Matthew's heart changed. He used his skills to help the needy, embracing a life of generosity and humility. He became a devoted disciple, sharing Jesus' teachings far and wide. Matthew's story became one of redemption, reminding us that anyone, no matter their past, can change and find grace. His journey from a selfish tax collector to a selfless apostle illustrates the transformative power of love and faith. In the
I like that. It teaches us that God gives us skills and we can either use them for good or we can use them for bad.
Yes. Okay, our last one is Thomas. Isn't this Doubting Thomas? Yes, this is what I was in the beginning. His other names are Didymus, which in brackets it says twin. Was he a twin?
It says he was a twin, found in John 20:20.
Didn't know that. And then Judas Thomas was his other name, and Doubting Thomas. Listed as one of Christ's 12 disciples. His personality was he was inquisitive, he was doubtful, that's probably why, and courageous and faithful. So it says he courageously encouraged disciples to go to Bethany. He doubted Jesus' resurrection, saying he would have to touch his wounds in order to believe. And I do believe he did.
Mm-hmm.
And you can find that in John 20, verse 25. He affirmed that Jesus was Lord and God, and that was in John 20:28. He witnessed the miraculous catch of fish and ate breakfast with Jesus after his resurrection. So he was confirmed. Wasn't Jesus talking to him and saying, "Blessed are those who believe and do not see"? I don't know if he was angry at Thomas that he had to show himself, but it's kind of nice that it's in the Bible because it shows a bit of both. There's a lot of people that doubt, and there's a lot of people that do believe without seeing.
Yeah, have blind faith for sure.
So in our Who's Who's, Thomas was one of the 12 disciples. He was also called Didymus, which means the twin. Thomas is remembered as the doubting disciple because he doubted the other disciples who said they had seen the risen Jesus. A week later, Jesus appeared to the disciples again when Thomas was with them. Thomas' doubt disappeared as he worshipped at Jesus' feet.
Then the key lesson here is Jesus can overcome doubts and lead believers to faithfulness. And stories suggest that Thomas traveled to India and founded the Christian church there. Some suggest Thomas was killed by a spear for his faith and was buried in India. Some say Thomas was a carpenter. Symbols for Thomas include the spearhead and the T-square. And further, Thomas ultimately demonstrated deep faith, calling Jesus my Lord and my God. His journey reassures us that doubts can lead to stronger belief.
What did the T-square symbol mean? What does that mean?
It says for both, the spearhead represents Thomas's martyrdom. Tradition holds that he was killed by a spear while preaching in India, where he's believed to have spread the gospel and established Christian communities. The T-square symbolizes his role as the architect of the church in India. Some traditions suggest he had a background in construction or that he helped build churches. The T-square represents precision, structure, and the foundation of faith he helped to establish. These symbols reflect his mission, sacrifice, and the lasting impact of his ministry.
Thank you for that. And last, for those visual learners,
doubted Jesus. But did you know he also traveled to India? This lesser-known journey is significant in Christian history. According to tradition, Thomas arrived on the Malabar coast around 52 AD. He preached and established communities, deeply influencing the local culture and faith. His mission led to the formation of the Syrian Christian community, which still exists today. Thomas's legacy emphasizes the spread of Christianity beyond Europe and into Asia, showcasing the universal appeal of his message. This connection illustrates how faith transcends borders and unites diverse cultures, revealing the profound impact of one man's conviction.
So just wrapping up, each of these apostles just demonstrates our own weaknesses and, well, their weaknesses and their strengths, and we can find ourselves within these stories, helping us to come to terms with our own spiritual journey and knowing that we don't have to be perfect. And if you want to dive deeper, going into watching some of these documentaries on each individual is even more interesting than just finding out these little tidbits, but actually watching a movie about it.
That's why I watched The Chosen, because I wanted to learn about the different disciples and people that were running in his circle. I know there's some Christians that are against watching it, but for me, it was a good learning tool. And even these things that we're showing you, it's really good because you can see pictures and it's just short. We hope that this episode helped you learn about these 8. And we have the last 4 to go in our next episode because we don't want to overwhelm. And if you have any more to share about each disciple that we might have missed, just put in the comments. We'd love to hear from you and learn more about the disciples. And who's your favorite? Who do you relate to? For me, I was doubting Thomas, and I'm going to wait to see if my opinion has changed, if I'm still doubting Thomas, if it's moved over to another disciple, but we have 4 more to learn. So,
well, you were doubting Thomas last year, but I think you've definitely moved over to being that disciple that we talked in the first round, which was like the one that God loved the most.
Aw,
Yeah, because now every day you're reading about Jesus and
that's just cute, Carolyn.
spending time with God.
Well, I like that.
Yeah.
All right, guys, thank you for joining us as we carry on and growing in our faith together. And please, if you found this video helpful, or if you liked it, share it with your sister, your brother, your friends, and like the video so it can reach more people, and comment and subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe, and let's all make
Having crowded.
awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. We'll see you
Bye.
again. Bye.